Shalom Aleichem. Mishnah Yomi is in chapter 8 of Sotah, famously Meshuach Melchama, about war, and we are in Mishnah Hey, the Yosfu Ashotrim, and the officers of the army, they added Lidaber Ela'am, to also tell the nation, the Amru, and they said, they're quoting a verse in Devarim, Deuteronomy chapter 20, verse 8, Mia ish hayore, who is the man who's afraid, v'roch levav, and soft in the heart, Yelich vayashiv leveto, he should go and return to his home. Rabbi Akiva says, Hayore v'roch levav kimashmo. When the Torah is talking about someone who's afraid and soft-hearted, it's quite literal. She'eno yachol lamod b'kishrei milchama, he can't stand in formation when he sees the enemy army coming, v'lirot cherev shufa, and he sees a sword drawn that might take his life. As we mentioned yesterday, and Reish Lakish mentioned in Bava Metzia, Daf 84, part of the function of polishing and shining and having a sheen and a glint on the weapons and armor was to intimidate and deter the enemy. Rabbi Yossi Aglili Omer disagrees. He says, Hayore v'roch levav, the one who's afraid and soft in the heart, Zeyu hamityare min ha'aveirot shebiyado. This is any soldier who's afraid because he's done something wrong. He has some transgressions, and he's aware that transgressions in a time of danger can cause death and harm. And we learned similarly in the Mishnayot in Shabbat that there were certain averot that women might become in danger with during childbirth. So in a time of danger, holding on to an avera is a worse problem. Lefichach, and therefore, talta lo haTorah et kol elu. There's something to hang his hat on. The Torah gave him an out, sheyachazor biglalan, that he can return, and people think it's for another reason. So this person might have done an avera, even a rabbinical transgression. He's worried he's going to get in trouble during the war, during the battle. But when he leaves, his squad mates will say, oh yeah, I think that guy planted some trees, or maybe he built a storage house. Yeah, he's probably going back for one of all those many other reasons that we talked about yesterday. So this spares him the shame of either being thought of as weak-hearted by his fellows and literally afraid of war, or the shame of them knowing he has averots and that he's also putting them in danger. So they'll assume it's for a good reason he's coming back. Rabbi Yossi Omer, Almana l'Kohen Gadol, a widow marrying the high priest, Grusha Galutz to the Kohen Hedyot, or a divorcee or halutze to a regular Kohen, Mamzer Netin Yisrael, a genealogically unfit person, or a givoni to a Yisrael, but Yisrael Mamzer Notin, or vice versa. Harelu Yari Rachlevav. He says these ones are the ones who are afraid and soft-hearted. He's saying these are biblical problems. He says, at a biblical level of Avera, a person should turn away from the battlefield. But a rabbinical level of Avera, just try to do tshuva and fix it up, but stay in the army. Now the Mishnah goes on to Devarim chapter 20, verse 9. V'haya kechalot shotim l'deber la'am, and it was when the officers finished speaking to the nation about these exemptions, ufokdu sarid tzvaot barosh ha'am, and they put the leaders of the groups, like the battalions or the squads, in front of the nation, uvakevush ha'am, and they also had officers behind the people. So Mishnah explains, Ma'amidim zakifim lifnehem. They would put zakifim, is literally a blessing we make in the morning, zokef kifufim. This is zakifim, is the lifter-uppers, those who help people stand up. So they put strong, courageous men in the front who literally could pick people up who were stumbling or falling, or lead people into battle with their courage. Ve'acherim macharehem, and they had other officers behind them, kashilim shel barzel bidehem. And they had these iron poles in their hands, so if somebody starts running away from the battle, harashut biado, they had permission, these officers in the back, they had the permission, the bakeach et shokov, to whack them in the lower leg. They could hurt them if they were trying to leave the battle, so that the people would not leave the battle. And this is unpleasant, but necessary. Shetachilat nisa nefilah, because running away from the battle is the beginning of the downfall of the whole army and the loss of the whole war. Shneimar, there's a pasuk in the first book of Shmuel, chapter 4, Nasir Shelifnei Plishtim, the Jews started running away from the Plishtim, These were the actual Philistines, a completely different, distinct nation from the local Arabs who inhabit Gaza now, totally different. V'gam magefa gedola haitab am, and there was a great slaughter amongst the people. So what happens is when the soldiers start to turn their back towards the enemy becomes emboldened and attacks with greater vigor, and God forbid slaughters many of the people running away. So it's better to stand and fight than to start running away. And it also says about the battle, the Jewish army ran away from the Plishtim, there were many victims because they ran away. They would have done better if they had stood and fought. And the merit of our learning, Am Yisrael should always stand and fight with Hashem on our side.